Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 85th episode of In the Trenches, Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is the 27th of January, and my name is George Glass, an Associate Managing Director in the CTI team. Joining me today is Mukesh Nagar, Ryan Hicks, Dave Truman, and Sarah Carrigan. As always, we will be covering the most recent trends our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's get into the situational report. First up, last week on the 24th, we released an out-of-band, that's for SonicWall and CVE 2025-23006. This is a 9.8 CVSS score vulnerability that has been actively exploited in the wild, according to SonicWall. It affects SonicWall appliance management consoles and central management consoles of versions up to and including 12.4.3-02804. Certainly revert to the outer band, but for more information on this one, we're continuing to track this. Yeah, certainly something that could be very impactful over the next couple of weeks if we don't patch. Next up is an update to Kroll. Kroll has continued its campaign regarding the Clio supply chain attack by listing 50 new unnamed victims. The group's post reads as follows: "Dear companies, this is the next list, which we have closed for the time being and do not show the names in full. If you do not get in touch ASAP, the list will be open," and continues with the listed victim organizations. Kroll is also threatening to release already posted victim organizations on January 24th, a deadline previously set for January 18th and January 21st. At this time, only 6 of the companies have had their data published by the threat group, with only 1 of the organization's posts not containing files. And lastly, we have an update for CVE 2025-0411. This is a mark of the web bypass in 7-zip. Researchers have published a POC for the vulnerability that allows remote attackers to bypass the protection mechanism for downloaded archives on affected 7-zip installations. The POC uses shellcode and injection to create a malicious payload capable of bypassing checks and executing directly with no user warnings. Obviously, it's very important to update this. 7-zip is very, very popular and is in a lot of places, so certainly make sure that you're updating and patching these. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, please get in touch with us using cti@kroll.com. So let's get into the rest of today's briefing. Today, we are going to cover the following trends our team is concentrating on. I will be covering an ATOMICSTEALER campaign that's impersonating Homebrew. Mukesh will be talking out a botnet that is leveraging DNS misconfigurations. Ryan has some news on a DDoS botnet. Dave is taking the malware spotlight, this week covering PNGPLUG. And of course, we have Sarah back again for the ransomware roundup. So let's talk about this Homebrew impersonation. We've talked about this before, but threat actors are continuing to exploit Google search advertisements to conduct phishing and malware distribution campaigns. They are leveraging legitimate-looking domains to impersonate popular tools. This time, it's specifically targeting macOS devices using ATOMICSTEALER, which again we've written about a lot. That's also called AMOSSTEALER. We've reported on the trend for quite some time, but this particular time, the primary targets are unsuspecting users seeking to download legitimate software that's using the Homebrew repository. I use it a lot personally. It's sort of like the unofficial Mac package manager. The method really does show how much threat actors are willing to, the levels they're willing to go through to impersonate these. I've got some screenshots in a second, but just to reiterate some of the recommendations that we've covered in the past. Obviously, ensuring EDR solutions are in place. Training users to check URLs are legitimate before interacting with websites via search engine. And additionally, users and developers should be aware of the actions a command will execute before copy and pasting from any website. That goes for this example and for some of the others that we've been covering in the past as well. You may also consider blocking advertisements. So let's just take a quick look at the campaign. You can see the malicious site on the left there. Very close matching brew with an e.sh as the URL. But there are a few telltale signs. First of all, the misconfiguration in the tab name at the top left-hand side there. And you can see that the install Homebrew command, which usually you would execute and Homebrew be installed, has had some malicious code prepended to it. In this particular case, it will go and install ATOMICSTEALER, as we mentioned. This really does go back to some of the recommendations, ensuring you know what a command does before executing it on your environment. In terms of targeting so far, of course, this is targeting developers. This package manager is used by a lot of developers, but also home and personal users as well. And that's it for this story. I'm going to pass over to Mukesh with some information about a botnet using DNS misconfigurations. Over to you, Mukesh.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, George. So, InfoBlocks Threat Intelligence recently discovered a botnet that was delivering malware through spam campaigns, which exploited DNS records being misconfigured on MikroTik routers. Unlike traditional email spoofing, the campaign uses improper SPF configurations to circumvent email security measures. The botnet has been reportedly composed of approximately 30,000 compromised MikroTik routers, and its persistent threat leveraging global devices to distribute Trojan malware and likely engage in other malicious activities. The spam emails observed were disguised as legitimate communication, impersonating organizations such as DHL, and also included malicious attachments. The campaign, exploiting the misconfigured SPF records in DNS settings, enabled email spoofing. Those who have SPF DNS records, those that have SPF records in their DNS settings configured correctly should specify authorized mail servers and deny unauthorized sources. As you can see on screen below, there is a sample of what a correct configuration should look like, which has the tag all or hyphen all at the end of the domain, whereas a misconfigured record observed would have a plus all. Now, if you are running MikroTik routers, I would recommend checking the DNS configuration on them to ensure that it is a tag or hyphen all and not a plus all. That's everything from me, George. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mukesh. And now, sticking with the botnet theme, but this time they're using DDoS botnets. Over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, George. So a new variant of the Mirai botnets, dubbed as the Murdoc botnet, has been identified in a recent large-scale campaign. During that campaign, Qualys noted that over 1,300 IP addresses were infected with the botnet through exploitation of either AV-Tech IP cameras or Huawei routers. Among the vulnerabilities that were utilized were CVE 2024-7029 and CVE 2017-17215, and those were used to download the additional payloads required to join the device to the large botnet. This also follows additional recent Mirai activity whereby another variant was observed exploiting a zero-day vulnerability in full faith industrial routers, among some other IoT devices. And again, those are used to spread and join the device to the botnet. It's estimated that there are approximately 15,000 active botnet IPs for that particular variant by the end of November 2024. Furthermore, Cloudflare recently released its DDoS trends for Q4 2024, and that detailed Mirai is accounting for 6% of the total of all network layer DDoS attacks, which is an increase of 131% on the previous quarter. Mirai also was attributed to the largest DDoS on record, again in that quarter, seeing a 5.6 terabit per second attack lasting 80 seconds, and that originated from approximately 13,000 devices, IoT devices in fact. And that's what you see in the graph on the right there. So botnets such as Mirai continue to be used effectively to prevent or reduce access to infrastructure such as public websites. They often, as mentioned before, often compromised, infected smart or IoT devices, typically through that vulnerability exploitation. So recommendations really to reduce that impact is really continually assessing current DDoS defense strategy to help detect, prevent, and reduce the effects of these DDoS botnets against public-facing infrastructure. And that's all for me. Back to you, George.
Great stuff, Ryan. I'll pass to Dave now for our malware spotlight this week on PNGPLUG. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you. PNGPLUG is a new loader. It was originally documented by a Chinese cybersecurity company Ho-Rong and named by IntEaser. The loader has been seen disputing ValiRat against e-commerce, finance, sales and management enterprises in the Asia-Pacific region. The activity has been attributed to KTA405, aka Silverfox. The loader is distributed via fake software websites. Users can be directed to them via social engineering, SEO poisoning, and malvertising. The malware is packaged inside an MSI file with multiple layers of embedding. The first layer is a DLL, which the installer is configured to run. This will extract and execute a password-protected zip file containing the second layer. The second layer consists of a legitimate application exe file, vulnerable to DLL sideloading, and a malicious DLL of over 200 megabytes in size. The large size is likely to push it over the size where security tools will upload for analysis. When run, this DLL will extract shellcode hidden inside two stenography-protected PNG files. The first PNG file contains the loader's code, which checks to see if it is running with a /AUT command line parameter. If not, it will relaunch with this parameter. It then proceeds to check for antivirus software. If antivirus is found, it will launch from its own memory space the final payload, in this case ValiRat. However, if antivirus is not detected, it would inject the payload into a new process of the Windows color management tool, colorcpl.exe. The sample also makes use of the registry path, HKey current user, software dicexe path to store the location of the vulnerable legitimate binary. This path may prove helpful in detection rules or threat hunting, as it likely has a low false positive ratio. Thank you. George?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dave. And to take us to the end, it's over to Sarah for this week's ransomware roundup. Sarah?
Thanks, George. The story we have for this week is about ransomware groups continually using Microsoft Teams to pose as IT support in various phishing attacks. So researchers were identifying that the groups that are utilizing this tactic are STAC 5143 and STAC 5777. These groups initiate contact by bombarding victims' employees with spam emails, and then they'll follow up with a Teams call. So during this call, the threat actors will pretend to be from the organization's IT department, and they urge the victims to initiate a Teams screen share. So then once they do that, they'll install remote access software. And once that is granted, this allows the attackers to take control of the victim's machine and then install ransomware. So attacks like these, they've been observed since November of 2024, and there's been at least 15 incidents reported in the past 3 months. So the primary goal and motivation of these attacks is data theft and extortion. The groups I mentioned earlier are suspected, especially STAC 5143, is suspected to have possible links to Fin7, and then STAC 5777 relies more on direct interaction and scripted commands. So we do have mitigation advice just to combat these types of threats, including restricting Teams calls from external sources, limiting the use of remote access applications, and enhancing employee awareness of ongoing threats. That's all for me, George.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you very much to Ryan, Dave, and Mukesh. That's all we have time for this week. If you have any questions or comments, please do reach out to us using cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. Have a great day.